Alright, today I wanted to show you a school project I helped my son with, building a trebuchet. His project was to make one of these or make a catapult, and he decided to make this. So some of this might look familiar if you've seen the other video where I made a double pendulum. This is actually, I left this frame the same here, except I cut the top off a little bit shorter so that it matched this size. And then I just built an exact frame on this side of the base to help support the counterweight and the swing arm. Let me show you a little bit of the detail here. So when we were going for the first shot, he had to shoot a racquetball 30 meters and hit a target 3 times. And so when we first did that, we only had these 2 center weights, which are 5 pounds each. So it was a total of 10 pounds. Then we added these 2.5 pounders on each side, giving it 15 pound weight. When we decided to, this was when he was shooting for the distance. And he was successful in all of those. From the support arms here, we went ahead and we had to go buy a longer carriage bolt. And let me just show you some of the detail in here. From this side of the carriage bolt, we put 3 or 4 nylon washers, this metal spacer to help things spin freely, a couple more vinyl washers, and then a spacer that we drilled into this swing arm and actually glued into place to keep it from sliding back and forth. Help keep this thing centered, because as you can see, there's not a lot of space in between the supports for that counterweight. Then of course, some more washers, another spacer, more washers. On this side, I went with a metal washer and a locking nut. Now when you're building a trebuchet, there's a couple of things you want to make note of. This side is where the counterweight's going to be hanging. And you want to make it so that this side, the ratio is 1 to over here is 3 3/4. And so depending on how big you're making your supports and those types of things is how long you're going to make that arm. To hold the counterweights, it's nothing too fancy. We just put one of these eye screws in, and really all we did is took zip ties to hold all those weights together so they didn't clink around, and then zip tied one through that eye screw. On the front end, show you a close-up of this, we did an eye screw here, and this part of the sling just stays in this eye screw all the time. Then you have another loop for the other side of your sling, and this, some people just use a nail. I actually had, it's kind of an L screw that you go in, and then I just bent it out. But this is what's going to release as your swing arm comes up. It's going to let go as your ball swings up this way, your projectile, whatever you're throwing. I can give you a better idea of what this sling looks like. So we just took an old t-shirt and cut it up. Just poked a couple holes into it, but that's all it is just a couple of loops. One's running through that eye screw, and this side ends up hooking up over here. And the last thing that we'll do is we needed a quick release. You couldn't use, just hold it down and then let it go yourself. You had to kind of be away from it. That was one of the rules. And so it's probably not the most perfect design because it can bend the weight can bend this pin here, but once we would bring it down, we would actually, I just put a couple of blocks here, and once this would come down, we would just drill the hole for this nail to go through, and it's pretty good amount bigger so that it's easy to push this through. But then that holds the release pin on the swing arm so that this string here, I can just pull that out and the nail comes out, releasing that pressure. And this weight will swing down. So that's basically how we built it. It worked out pretty good. A lot of the kids brought in, you know, 4 or 5 foot tall ones. This one ended up being just as accurate, if not more accurate, and could throw the racquetball just as far as them, if not further. So it's a good, tight little design. You might have these scraps lying around, but even if you don't, 1x2 from the store is just a couple bucks, and you can build all this. You just need a little bit of hardware and those weights. So we'll show you how it works. Okay, one last thing to note. This pin is bent at a certain angle right now. And depending upon how much weight you put on that counterweight, and if you're shooting for a target, or if you're shooting for distance, making little adjustments to this pin is going to determine when that sling releases the ball. And so you have to kind of do a little bit of trial and error there. If you're having trouble, if it's when you release it, it's launching the ball straight into the ground, you need to adjust this pin. This is about the perfect angle for the weight that we've got. And everything that you'll read on the internet will say you're going to want something that's 100 to 133 times the weight. So that's why we went with about 15 pounds here for the distance. 10 pounds is about 135 times the weight of that racquetball. So it's going to depend on what you're trying to throw. But either way, anytime you make adjustments to the weight, you're going to want to mess with this pin here. That's how you make a trebuchet. If this video was helpful, please like and subscribe.